What's the big idea?
I can hear it.
All right. Eric was just
The inhale.
swallowing
Drinking water.
coffee.
Oh.
Oh, water.
Mom's had coffee.
Welcome to yet another episode of Volleyballology. Another free episode. They're free for now.
Yeah, for now.
Get it while you can.
Yeah, that's what. Yep, that's what I will say. But
Hot and ready.
what are we selling? Pizzas, guys?
Caesars does not sponsor.
This
Little Caesars.
This is a very timely episode once again. It's in some parts of the world it is club tryout season, and if it's not now, it might be later. So this episode is called Picking the Right Club Team. Advice for parents, players on how to pick the right club team. Before we get started, though, I'll do the introductions. My name is Zuby.
My name is Erik.
My name is Meach.
Hey, you went back to the...
Conformity.
Wow. Excellent.
Or was it?
Meets his fingers crossed. Meets his fingers were crossed, what he said. Yeah, so today's episode is about, I guess, the good things parents can look for and maybe some warning signs they can look for when picking a club team. I'm going to let you guys kick things off, either one of you. Thoughts?
Well, and things the kid might see as bad things as well.
True.
Not good things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing there's going to be, that's got to be difficult. Like dealing, like your kid wants to, like, thinks this is a great club, but it's probably for some irrational reason. And you have to try and reason with them to be like, no, like maybe we shouldn't go here. Sorry, we'll get into that more later, but, yeah. So
on whether it should be the kid's focused decision or the parents or a combination, right?
yeah, I'm assuming it's a combination.
Mm-hmm.
The parent is, they've lived longer, they have more experience, so they're going to have more wisdom, and hopefully they can help their kid make a good choice. Because I'm sure kids, like, they'll want to go to this club, but like the parent sees how they're like they charge way too much, or like, they're just kind of out to get money, and then the quality of coaching isn't really that good. But the kid wants to go there because like the other cool kids in their high school are playing in that club or something, or the popular kids. And so it's like, how do you? I mean, I guess you just have to have that conversation with them, like. But is that, I don't have kids, so is that what you do with them? Just tell them straight up. I know you want to go there just because they're popular, and you're not, and you want to be okay.
Yeah, no, it's good to think about what would you do if you had kids, but yeah, that's what you do with them. You talk to them.
You just be
and
honest,
if they don't listen, then you might have to hit them.
Yeah. Okay.
Just kidding. Don't hit kids.
So it doesn't sound like too difficult of a process.
No, it's pretty easy. 1, talk. 2, hit.
Okay.
3,
3.
threaten.
Wouldn't
Again?
that come before a hit?
This show isn't. No, hey, we are against hitting anything at Volleyballology.
And if your kids are big and strong, just remember that they're going to
Yes.
one day
Get bigger.
get bigger.
Yes.
Be able to hit back.
Yes.
Yes, don't hit your kids.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
joking.
My kids do tell me they can't wait till I'm old so they can beat the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, bring it. Bring it.
Bring it now while
Yeah.
I'm
In my
still
prime.
able.
Still able, yeah. Yeah, don't hit kids. So, yeah, I think that there's a good point in there, too, that you said that the kids can sometimes want clubs for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
And I think the tricky thing is parents can also want the club for the wrong reason, too.
Oh, yeah.
They all want to be drawn to the big, loud club. I do tell parents that, you have to rethink that strategy, because you might want to, I think I just bumped my chin on the mic.
Did you?
Yeah, a little bit. It scared me. Parents need to be careful of not getting sucked into the big, loud club, too, because it gives too much power to the club. And sometimes you have to, in our experience, my experience locally was that some of those loud clubs, because they get so many people applying and trying out for them all the time, they don't have to try very hard. And then you notice the coaching quality goes way down, and parents are still drawn to that club, and sort of the club is riding its own coattails.
Yeah.
So I think people have to be wary of that. Parents get roped into that glamour club thing too. So
So it's not so great to pick for the glamour. Just make sure it's the right type of club for your kid.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of it is too, you don't want to avoid the kids' input too. That's the other danger, that some parents, they push their kid into a certain club, and then they don't listen to the kid. Maybe the kid doesn't want to go there. Maybe the kid's not comfortable there. It's kind of like buying a house, right? Like you walk into a house and they say like, you'll know it when you know it, or even relationships in any way, right? You kind of have a feeling very early on that things are pretty strong here. Kids are the same with their club teams, right? Like they'll get a vibe from a club and they might tell you, and parents have to listen to that, because sometimes parents want the kid to be in the big club, or or even in the small club, and the kid's telling you they don't feel comfortable there. Maybe they don't feel comfortable with the coach. It's a fine line, because you have to be careful, because some kids are uncomfortable with things that are new, and your job as a parent is to push them towards uncomfortable things sometimes. But then that can be a problem if they're giving you a real sign. It's hard to decipher between what's a real fear and anxiety, or what's a warranted one, and what's one that needs to be challenged a bit. But I think if a kid's not comfortable with people on the team, I think that's a huge one, right?
Yeah, that's a huge
being
red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, because ultimately it is the kid that has to do the playing with the coach, the players, and the organization. So that's got to weigh heavy on the decision.
Yep, I agree with that. Unless your kid's a moron,
Right.
then
Then have them go anywhere.
then you go to the hitting. No, just kidding. Jeez. Good times. Sorry, Eric, do you have something on your list or anything that you?
Well, I just like kind of going with what you're saying here. Like, yeah, being welcome is definitely that has to be there, because like one of the main things, like you're there to improve, you're there to enjoy the game, right? So you have to be welcome, and then you're there to hopefully improve it, and improvement just happens naturally. But
Fun.
yeah, fun, and like, but you also hopefully want to be in an environment where you're driven and you're challenged and you're pushed, not like physically, just like pushed to become better, right? So right, so being welcomed by the coach, but also definitely by the team as well, right? And then so that's like, you can't really, those things, the improvement is less likely to happen if you're afraid all the time, or like you're alienated by the team, or I don't know, the coach is alienated by the coach.
What happens? For sure, it happens all the time.
Yeah, that's the worst thing, to get picked and then get alienated
just
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it's tricky, because you might not even know it's coming.
Yeah.
Like you might think you picked the perfect club, like your kid's happy. This happened to us. I think every parent listening, you think you picked, oh wow, this is so good. Right coach, right team, our kid is happy. And then everybody loses their mind. The team is like, the coach was like, changes, like rips off a mask, fooled you,
Yes, that's right.
Or the teammates,
It becomes a different person after tryouts.
or the coach can become a different person after tries from what you thought or what they came off with, or the coach, like we'll talk about this too, club culture. The club culture can become toxic,
The whole
because
cliquey thing.
yeah, and I always we talked about this in Good Coach, Bad Coach too, where it is team culture is coach. It's all the coach who dictates team culture. Like there's no such thing as a toxic team and the coach just like, I don't know what happened. No, the coach has to snuff that out by having we talked about this, consistent rules. So if you have a coach, like that was one of my red flags, like something parents can look for in tryouts. Like, and we talked about this in other episodes too. If a coach is too buddy with like returning players in a tryout, that is a red flag. Because that just means it's an insecure coach who wants to look cool and be buddies with these teenagers, and it's kind of weird, right? Like, I think that's a danger. I think that's like, how you do anything is how you do everything. That's a line I like to use a lot with people. Like, how you do any one thing in your life is probably consistent with how you do everything. So if they're buddy with someone in tryouts way too much,
Yeah.
it's not being polite, but I mean like high-fiving and like laughing
I know what
together.
you mean. Yeah,
and-
I've seen that
yeah,
a lot.
that's a red flag, because that means that coach has that quality, and it's going to happen with the team.
And what it means is, like, as your kid needs to then, if they do choose that team, they're going to end up having to be buddy with that coach, or they're not going to get playing time, or like the coach will, like just do shitty. Yeah. Like not give them as much coaching feedback or whatever. And then,
Yeah, it's just a sign of wanting to play favorites,
Yeah,
That's why it's so dangerous, and it's not going to be the whole team. Like, it's already just by doing that. We talked about the in-group, out-group
yeah.
in tryouts and sociology, that idea that, the people who like in-groups and out-groups, they like to keep it exclusive because that gives them power, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I had on my
too.
list, was that if they're too buddy in tryouts, red flag for parents, keep your eye open for that, because you don't even need to know much about volleyball to see that. You just have to know people,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that the fact that that coaches should be basing it on, what is the skill level of the players, what's their desire to play, not to make it like it's a system where, okay, if you're my friend, then you're going to get playing time. It shouldn't be like that. It should be something more equalized, where if it's a good player, that's the basis for the pick, and to make sure that everybody's treated equally.
Yeah, and it just tells you too that they're going to be favored. Like, remember we talked about this, where if you re-sign the whole team, then that takes all the fight out of a player.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with that. Like, if you're being buddy with someone at tryouts, then you're basically telling them they don't have to work as hard.
Yeah.
You're giving them the green light to do whatever, and it's okay. We're friends. We're friends, and I think that's a dangerous quality for a coach, because then you're going to be that way on the team. There's going to be different rules for different players. You know what I mean? Like if the new player shanks the ball, then they're going to get less playing time, but not you, because you're my buddy. And I've seen that, like, literally last season, our daughter's team. There's a player who could not pass, but she was starting left side every game. Couldn't pass, very rarely jumped on good sets, and screamed at teammates all the time. She played every game. She showed up late for every practice, after the physical warm-up, by the way, every time, and showed up late for tournaments, after the warm-ups, still right on that court. And that's what I mean by a coach controls culture. And if you parents spot any sort of stuff like that in tryouts,
I'd be shitting my pants if because I've showed up late to practice, and so it's just like ingrained into me or whatever. Like whenever I showed up to a game,
you should be terrified.
Yeah, I would be. I'm like, I feel embarrassed. I feel like an asshole.
Especially if what you're missing every time is the physical activity.
Yeah.
Like you're intentionally doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing.
Did we mention this in the tryout podcast? Because I guess following what you're saying is that in tryouts, you would want to see a coach, especially if you're like, say you're the player and you're returning the same club you played on last year. You'd want to see the coach treating the players that were even on the team last year like new players, right? So even in tryout, not giving them any favoritism and still challenging and pushing them, and not just being okay with whatever their skill is that the coach is familiar with, right?
Yep.
The coach should be almost imagining a clean slate and putting that on every player and seeing what they have to work with, and like not just skill wise, but their intersocial team skills as well, like how they interact, especially with new players, because that's just those are fundamental social skills required for good team dynamics and stuff, right?
Yeah.
If you're too comfortable just always playing on the same team all the time, then you're not used to, and you haven't had enough experience, like either being the new person on a team or having new team members and like being welcoming to them, or there's always nerves involved, especially when we're kids. Like I remember all it is just like nervous and anxiety and all this 100%. Stuff, right? And like you go to like volleyball camp and stuff, and it's like totally nerve-wracking the first day you're there because you don't know anyone. But then once you meet friends and like gel or whatever, it's like it turns into like your kids come back from volleyball camp and they're just like
Yep.
absolutely ecstatic, right?
Yep.
So, and I guess that's also part of the conversation parents can have with their kids is that if, helping your child navigate and try to find, being like, look, I think you may enjoy this club more because these kids look like they're more welcoming, or they may be better friends or something, right? And then, because I guess kids in the moment can be blinded. They're just like, they're emotionally clung on to something irrational.
Yeah.
And you have to try to...
Their definition of what cool is, who cool is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or that team has the cool uniforms that I want to wear or whatever, right?
Factor.
Yeah, they're really popular. Yeah. So totally rambling here. But the coach, my point was just you want to see the coach treat even returning players as if they're new, but I guess...
Well, I mean, that's why we play sport, right? Like, that's why the whole essence of sport is to show up and compete for a spot. And if your coach gives any sort of vibe that we're buddies, or this is the cool group, or these are my friends.
That's a good point. The essence of sport is competition.
Yeah, and anything that kills that is counterproductive. That's why we talked about, and another one on my list was if the club is guaranteeing too many spots for returning players. Remember we talked about that in the Tryout show, I believe it was. Then you're killing that same thing. There's no drive. Like we talked about the pro team. Like imagine if a pro sports team said to people, all right, you're guaranteed on this team for the next 5 years, or you're guaranteed, you know what I mean? Like the whole idea, you want everybody a little bit, and this is the thing, people talk about no trade clauses in sports, right? One of the problems with no trade clauses is some people feel that it kills the players' drive. Now, I would submit that those athletes at that level are not dogging it because the people don't understand that about pro athletes, right? They're too caught up in excellence to dog. I hate that argument that, why don't the league, as a sports team, they all say, why don't they just tank it? Why don't they just tank it? Because they're pro athletes.
Yeah.
It's not in their genetics.
Or mindset.
Yes. Yeah, like you would tank it. They would, right? Easy for you to say.
They would hate themselves too much to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's just not in their makeup
So
it's impossible. And so people don't understand that. But, yeah, so I think that's one thing, like the guaranteed club spots. If you're at a club practice where there's 2 spots left for a team, to me that's a red flag because it means 2 things. Not only are they giving guaranteed spots to way too many players, regardless of what happened. Remember we talked about this? What if someone went and lifted weights all summer, trained all summer, played beach all summer, and then they can't make that team because we already offered everybody a spot. It's like insanity, right? Especially at junior ages where kids can change.
That's weird though. That you show up to tryout and they say, "Oh, we're only trying it for 2 spots." Like, I would assume a tryout, you don't know any of that information. You shouldn't know any of that.
No.
It should be there, and you should all equally feel as nervous.
That's the connection I wanted to bring up. It means that the coach is also moving up with the team, which sucks. That's another red flag. If the coach is moving up with the team, then that means that club is not into the idea of allowing players to learn from different coaches.
Yeah.
They can have the same voice for 2, 3, sometimes 4 years. They just move right up with the team. So that's the only way they do it. So I'll give you a great example. Okay, so I saw a player who was it was my daughter. So she was.
Did you see her? Girls play volleyball?
I did. Yeah, they dabble a little bit.
Okay.
So my daughter was starting. She played up a year, so she was 16 playing on an 18-year-old team, and she was the starting libero, right? So she was playing up like a year and a half almost, right? Because she could have played down even, right? Because she's a November kid.
That'd be awesome for her.
Yeah, so she did it. She had a great year. She kind of they told her she could hit outside. The coach said, yeah, if you sign with us, then you can hit outside once in a while too. And she's like, okay, good. And then they never let her hit outside and she turned down another offer in another team where she could have been a starting outside hitter. But very interesting story about that. We'll talk about that. But she thought she was couldn't hit anymore because she got in libero mode. And now this year she's hitting and she loves it. She's cranking it again. It's kind of crazy. So just to show you how a position can make a kid's mind. Like I told her, I said to her, you can think you're a libero and that's great. Nothing wrong with being libero. But I'm telling you right now, you're forgetting how much you like to hit outside. And then after tryout season, when she hit outside, she was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot how much I love hitting outside. I can't just be a libero, or I can be." But she also wasn't hitting well, by the way. She became, her mentality was. So just if coaches are listening, what you tell a player they are is fascinating because they will be that. So if you tell them they suck, they will suck. If you tell them they're great, or if you tell them, I'd like to see you. I think you can hit outside once in a while, or I think you can, jump serve, or I think you can do this, whatever, run a quick more often. That player will do it. Anyway, side note, but so the story was, so she was 18U starting libero, right? Or 18-year-old team starting libero. The next year, the 17-year-old team moved up with their coach. He re-signed all the players. So then, even if my daughter wanted to go back to that, because she didn't want to go back to that club, but if she did, there was no room on the team. So, you know what I mean? She was going to be 18-year second. Yeah. So she's probably played better ball than everybody on that team, because she played up a year than all of them. She's played libero. She's a very good player, very good beach player. But they re-signed everybody at their age group. So why? So she was like, well, I wasn't going to go anyway.
Wow. So she gets left in no man's land.
She didn't even get to. Yeah, she went to a better club. She's playing a better time now, and she's swinging outside. But the point is, though, like, wouldn't you say, hey, are any of those players returning? Second year at that age group. Yeah, very interesting. So that's a red flag too. So it ties in with the signing all the players, but that also means the other problem where the coaches are moving up year after year. That's a weird thing. I hate it.
Well, I wonder, do some clubs not have it set up where, like, say with their younger teams, you maybe have like your least experienced coaches, or should
be the opposite. I think your best coaches should be with the youngest age groups, personally,
right?
Because it's easier to coach them once they get foundational stuff. That's the problem. That's where most clubs mess up. They mess up because they put their, again, it's hard to say if they're the best coaches or the glory-seeking coaches, but the best coaches, you should never have your best coaches coaching at the highest level. You should have your best coaches coaching at the lowest level, because then, you have to be careful but best coach means foundational.
Like, you're talking very slight difference between, the coaches at 12U, 14U, 16, and then 18U, right? Like, you're not talking like it's not like the 18U coach is terrible. Like, hopefully they're not. Like, hopefully they're still a good coach. But like the ones
But if you do it right, the 18U coach doesn't have to do a damn thing.
Yeah.
Because all the players come up through the good foundational coaching.
They still need to understand the sport.
But a technical director, and that's another one of my points too, if a club has a good, highly qualified technical director,
they'll have coaches at each age group that don't move communicate with teams.
Yes, and also they don't so I don't find these, like, I don't know what it is, but so I run an organization and we hire coaches, and we call them in. So I create manuals for those coaches, and then we call them in and do sessions once in a while too, right? If I were running a full-fledged club team, this is a private organization that we do clinics for adults and kids and stuff. But if I were running a club, the first thing I would set up is a technical director, and if it wasn't me, it would be someone else I really trusted. And that person would hold sessions for the coaches. Yeah. I don't know why clubs aren't doing this.
They're not?
They don't have like a weekend thing for coach. They might have the odd thing, but because you will go and you will find in the club.
We've got the odd Zoom meeting.
Yeah, Zoom meeting, exactly, yes. But you won't find them in the gym doing a session like, here's how we teach this, here's how we teach that. I hope if clubs are listening, or if anybody's listening who's a club director, set that up, because it's so easy. Remember I told you the story
where before club season starts, right? Like, at least
and even
spend sporadically a day in the gym.
Yeah, even 6 hours. Yeah, and pay for it. Like, you get the gym for free. Give the coach.
Some clubs don't have that depth of 14, 16, 18 that they have established. So you got to give that leeway, considering that they're not as deep as other clubs would be.
Yeah, but the bulk of clubs are, though. The bulk of clubs have a lot of teams. They have more teams than they have coaches. Like, they're running out of coaches.
You know why this doesn't happen? Because we've done this before. I've been there with you doing this, and like, we run into the ego issues of coaches. Because if you get some coaches that are experienced, and then we're trying to like get on a
not experienced, think they're experienced.
Yeah. But we're trying to get on a mutual level of how like the forearm pass works and all this stuff, right? And then all of a sudden you would see like conflicting, perspectives on how to teach this or whatever. So can you imagine if you're trying to hold a general session with your coaches, getting ready for the season, you're talking about like this skill and then this skill, and then you just end up in like these arguments or difference of opinion on a technicalities and stuff. Mind you should be able to work through them. and hopefully, I mean, not to bash on coaches, but like some of these coaches who are just they think they know everything. They're the ones that are going to be like resistant to this, right? Mind you, there's a red flag for the technical directors that you're now like, oh geez, like
that's why, I mean, you can fix that issue. I think
you can fix it.
If you have that's where if you hire a kick-ass technical director with a really strong resume, you know, and then that technical director says, this is the direction we're taking the club. You know what I mean? And
you're right. Because that would mean that coach is not really respecting the technical. Yeah,
and that means. But the problem. I mean, we talked about this in Good Coach, Bad Coach too. The real problem, and I sort of mentioned it too, Meach. There's such a shortage of coaches that clubs don't feel they can be this assertive with coaches because they're begging. You know what I mean? Yeah. Beggars can't be choosers, so they're begging for coaches. But I would submit to people, and I sort of had this philosophy my whole life, even when I was teaching. If you actually have some courage as an institution, some guts, people will follow you more.
Yeah, they'd be grabbing. Yeah, the coach would be like, "Oh, this seems like a place I can actually stay
I want to follow this leader."
Yeah.
Versus if you're a wishy-washy, wimpy organization, like, okay, yeah, we're just happy you're here.
Coach is like, I'll do one season and leave.
Yeah, there's no vision there, right? Yeah. So if you're passionate and you believe in it, so again, if a club doesn't have a technical director that's really connected with the coaches, and that's another thing. Some clubs hire technical directors, but I don't see them, like, there's no consistency in the club vision. Like, I'll see different coaches doing different things, different philosophies, right? Like we talked about aggressive mindset, non-aggressive mindset. Remember I told you the club director, when that coach was telling my daughter she can't spin serve, even though she was doing it well, and the club director was like, "Yeah, I don't get that one, Zuby. Maybe you should talk with the coach." I'm like, "Why aren't you telling the club? Why am I having the conversation?"
That's what they said either.
Oh. Yeah, well, they did. I mean, I understand. Like, you know, it's a good thing. Like, maybe you should, you know, just ask the coach why that question. But if you as club director, assistant club director, shouldn't you be calling them up and saying, "Listen, here's how we coach"? But no, they're just because they're afraid of the coaches. They're afraid of people quitting. But again, they don't understand that everybody's looking for someone to follow. Everybody, not in a bad way either. Like they want inspiration, right? So,
and it's a mentality when you're looking at something like that. So it's basically, I'm not telling you how to coach specifically, but this is our mentality. This is our motto. This is our creed to go into tough serving. That is something that it's not a technical thing. It's a mentality.
It's a mindset. Yeah. It's a philosophy.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
No, agreed. Yeah. I think that clubs need to understand that they need to get someone in that position of like, what do we believe? You know, some pillars and fall. And it doesn't have to be exact X's and O's. You're right. Sometimes it might need to be, but but yeah, overall, that shouldn't be threatening to a coach.
Because I guess an ideal situation, like a player joins a club at a young age, at like 10 years old or something, and then they stay with that club all the way until they want to go play post-secondary ball, right? Like,
what was that? Sorry, say that again.
Like the ideal situation is that the club is run so well that they join at a young age and they stay and they go all the way up through the ranks,
right?
Because and the reason why I say that's ideal situation is because what you guys are saying, they have beliefs and fundamental philosophies set out across the club, right? Because if you're bouncing in between clubs back and forth, that's what you're going to miss out on. You may still get the technical benefit and all that stuff, but the greater vision, the greater goal, you're really just going to get the most out of that if you stay in the club the longest, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and they'll stay. You're saying if the quality's there, then the player will stay.
Yeah.
And the vision is there. Yeah, I agree. I think that's why. That's one of the red flags I had is like if a player, so there's one side, if they keep the players like with offers for year after year, which is kind of like tricky because that's not a good thing. But on the other hand, do the players want to keep coming back? Right?
Yeah.
So and so a player wants to come back. I guess why we do things matter, right? So if a player wants to go back to the same club because that's the easiest route because they got one of those advanced offers,
right,
that's not good for your kid. That's not good for your kid because then they're learning to take the easy route. But if your kid wants to go back to that club because they're getting something out of it and it's challenging them every year, and then that's a different why, right?
Yeah. Now, I would give fact to there is a real benefit, because I have experienced it, of switching clubs. There's no way that you can get that type of experience with the same club because it will be different. So if you do one club, another 1 year, another club, each club will have something different to offer. I mean, you're going to get your preferences, but taking different clubs is definitely something I would recommend.
Well, and that's what ends up happening, right? And my point was that in an ideal situation where the club really has everything down point, that then you can end up staying in it. But I agree. Like I think what happens again, that's ideal situation, but in reality, a lot of parents and kids end up moving around because say you do have a good coach 1 year, but then you're not going to have them the next year. So now you're already looking, and you're going to go to different tryouts and stuff and see, and then you find another new coach. That's how parents and kids are preserving their own learning experience.
Yes.
In where this is like very much a Wild West, and it's not. Again, some clubs are probably doing a great job, but then maybe the majority, or even if it's 50-50 or not, and then that's why parents and kids have to go out and then investigate, right? And so that's another thing is like, how many clubs are they going out to see? Or are they only going out to see one or two? And then because it's tough work, right? It costs a lot of time, money. You got to get out there, and then there's the pressure from each club. Like even when you go visit, they're like, oh yeah, like our next tryout is on this date, when they pick it intentionally when it conflicts with other ones and stuff. And so I can see how going to see 3 or 4 or 5 different clubs. That's like I'm guessing most parents don't do that, but
if you have the choice, that's nice.
Yeah. If the option's there,
it's probably tough to do 5. I think parents can realistically, the way tryouts are set up, probably you could get to 3. Max, just because there's too many conflicts, and tryout season is like a mad race.
It is, right.
But yeah. So Meach, why did you switch clubs?
I just wanted to go where ball was. I mean, basically there was factors of it was going to be cost, it's going to be distance for sure, and club dynamics. So I wanted the full experience, and I think it made me a better player just having that chance to go up multiple places.
Yep. Did you get to play more at the new club?
Sometimes I didn't.
Okay.
Sometimes I did, but then there was that challenge,
right,
where you're fighting for a spot. Like if you're comfortable, and you're not expanding that kind of discomfort with that, then are you really growing?
Yeah, because you wanted to be pushed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, and that's rare, right? That's rare because so many people today would take the comfort. I do think there is something. One thing that sort of ties in what you said, I think parents today underestimate the value of being a big fish in a small pond. I think there is some value in that. Like if you're a young kid, like it is nice to go to a club. Like again, so remember we talked about this, like I'm thinking of the example of the toxic club that thinks they're very good because they have geography, not because they have great coaching philosophy. You know what I mean? They just have numbers of kids, so they have a lot of success. Yeah. So the coaching might not be the best, but the club image is the best. Yes. Not because the coaches are good, but because, and if anything, some of the coaches walk around like they're like, king shit, and you're like, I know who you are.
Yeah, we can relate to this. Yeah,
we've seen this everywhere. My kids have gone to tryouts with big clubs where I can tell the coach doesn't know anything about volleyball, but they're walking around because they've got the logo on their shirt, and it's just because they live in a massive area where tons of people try out. So and a lot of parents are drawn to that, right? A lot of parents want their kids to be in those places, right?
And because they're more sought after, they can charge more money, so then they look cooler and all that
they have all that cachet, like on an iPhone. They're the iPhone of volleyball, just over, like very expensive, high.
It always works that way. The sought after clubs visually look flashier and stuff.
It's why people like buy a sweater for $300 as opposed to $20. Right? It's like the nature of our minds assume that we get what we pay for. So but so these clubs, they have parents are drawn to them, and I do tell parents sometimes it's nice to take your kid out of that noise and away. And this is sort of what I did. Like there was a couple clubs that actually got angry at us for not taking our kids there, and I'm like, you don't even. What if my kid sucks? Like I'm not. You know what I mean? Like that.
Wait, club got mad at you.
Well, so what happened was, like, I always liked. I think this is how I kind of lived my life too. I think I told you this before. Like I kind of don't go where a lot of the noise is. I kind of go away from it, and I kind of notice this trend in my life. So when my kids were coming up to club age, I didn't want them going to play with the big loud club local that's got all the glitz and glamour. I like to take them away, kind of like Rocky in the woodshed in the woods. Let's go practice out there, right? And I'd play Eye of the Tiger and everything, right?
Always worked, right?
Yeah, and I beat them up. No, just kidding. There's that hitting thing. No, and then it lets them develop in that quieter, no big fuss thing, right? And then when we did, so my daughter got to an age where she was a couple years in, and she wanted to go play for the big local club, and we were like, "Are you sure?" Because we know a little bit about that club. And she was like, but you have to, going back to your point, Meach, we had to let her
get experience, right?
Yeah, we had to let her decide, because you can't tell your kid, no, you have to let them learn and let them fail. And sure enough, a couple months into that season, we had to leave that club because the mentality was not there. And
Did you get another club?
Yeah, luckily we made sure there was another older team that wanted her anyway. And this club, remember the situation was basically, for people who didn't hear, it was like my daughter's a spin server at age 13, 14, liked to spin serve, loved to spin serve. It was the only way her serves could stay in, really. And then the coach was forbidding her from doing it, even in nothing games and even in practice. And it was like, what the heck is that about? Anyway, and the club director was or the club assistant president or whatever, or co-director. Vice director, I don't know what they was that's the one where the coach, he asked me to maybe ask the coach's opinion. It was just escalating and everything.
Wow.
So then we switched clubs, and then in my email telling the club director, I think we have another spot. Is it okay if we go? We didn't ask for money back. We were like, we just know this isn't going to work out, just based on the philosophy of, And then in that email from the director, it was an all uppercase email saying, well, Zuby, if you respect our club as much as you say you do, because my email was very polite and nice, and saying we love the club and blah, blah, then you would have brought your kids here from day one. And I'm like, I'm flattered that you...
Man, that's like...
Yeah, because he knew that our kids played somewhere else for the first couple of years, right? And they were both kind of... Like, one of my friends is the vice president, that's what it was, and he was teasing me about, you should bring your kids to our club, and I was like, yeah, I will. And I used to tell him, I just think they suck. That was but I like the idea of them being the big fish in the small pond. Not that they were big fish in the small pond, but they got lots of touches, they got lots of reps,
right? And
I knew the coaching quality wasn't the best in this other club. I knew they were a kind of smoke and mirrors success, like we talked about, based on population. So we, that I think parents need to understand too, like there is a theory that, if volleyball is really just reps, like it's touches and reps. And even as long as you get a coach that is willing to let you play, I would even suggest, even if they're not great X's and O's coaches, but if they let you get reps, we're seeing this in some of our youth fours leagues that we operate now, like the kids just play a lot.
Yeah.
And they move a lot and they're getting better every week. And there's nobody there coaching them. They just fail, succeed, fail, trial and error.
Yeah.
And they get better. And I think that parents, if you're picking a club, I would really recommend that you go to a place where the kid's gonna not dominate or anything, but just get a lot of court time. And that's where that coach's mentality comes in. If you have a coach that's going for the gold, if you sense that this club is all about win now, and they think that 14-year-old kids, 15-year-old kids, even 16-year-old kids or 18-year-old kids are at their finish line of volleyball, because hopefully they're not, right? Because everybody quits after 18, after their last year club, and so many kids don't play at post-secondary. So, like, I hope that mentality kids should understand that they can play their whole lives in organizations, right?
That's right.
So these coaches that, bench kids, it's just, that's not going to help anybody. So I would... Parents, be very careful. Try to pick a club where you think your kid's going to get the most fun out of it, and that means playing, right? Kids very rarely have fun. Now, you could be part of a team where you're not, like, you might not be starting in, maybe in tryouts in practices, you're included, you're in the drills, there's intensity, and there's real
if the practices are good, that can definitely help. And if it's one of these coaches who at least, like, if they're already winning. They
what I
won
was
the
just gonna
first set. Yeah. And then they're kind of have a big lead. At least get put in for the second set and stuff like that. But then
I don't understand these coaches that don't
that's
do that.
tough though, because how do you know when you're at a tryout that coach is going to do that?
I know. Well, I think some of the things we've talked about, the symptoms are there.
Yeah,
Like the buddy thing
The
is
other
a
stuff,
symptom.
Well,
if
and-
there's a win or nothing
And
else.
like, so being a parent in the club scene for years, you immediately it just happens. You get involved in the politics. You start to know people start to know you. So like that gives you the vibe right there. If you're already going to a club and then the politics are becoming prevalent enough for your kid to notice, then that's another telltale sign.
Yeah,
like,
actually, that's another point I mentioned. The parents' vibe.
yeah.
You know, you can tell by the parents of a club team what the club team's like.
I forgot about that. But
It's
yeah.
very well. You sort of brought it up there a little bit because you were saying that if the kid can
gonna
pick up
happen.
on the vibe and the parents and the culture. Yeah, it's funny. Every club you can tell if they're laid back parents. The club's a little laid back, not disorganized, but laid back, and that leads to a better vibe, better experience for the kid. Yeah. If it's super intense, crazy parents, crazy coaches, it's toxic and it's not fun.
Hopefully, the parents can do their homework ahead of like a year ahead at least, and go to practices, games, and see what their kid will be experiencing.
Yeah, it's just hard because like the club doesn't know who's going to be the coach. They don't know if their kid, like usually what happens, like, Mom, I like volleyball. And it's like 4 days before it's like, you know what I mean? So you don't know, or I want to quit. And that's why kids talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of them.
So that's the only thing is it's hard. Like imagine I can just see the parent who goes out and sees a year planning, and then the kid's like, I like football now.
Yeah.
That's when you hit them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
with the volleyball. Then
if they do that, I mean, they don't have to go into it. Like it's a little time spent, you know, if especially if the parent's interested in volleyball themselves, to see, hey, you know what, my kid likes volleyball now, like in the lower grade levels.
Yeah.
Where might they focus their attention?
Right.
If,
No, you're right. Yeah, parents do look up who the local clubs are, and it is worth trip to the gym and.
Well, and while you're at those tournaments, you get to play against the coaches of these other prospective teams, right? So I guess you'll see them enough, like at tournaments and stuff, that you'll have an idea. Oh, we may choose to play there next year or whatnot. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you're right. It doesn't have to be the coach either. I did have on mine the club culture. Like, and that's probably what you're talking about.
Where it comes.
You could pick that up.
especially.
Yeah. Club culture is huge because
The
it does.
parents,
And who the director, like, not that you have to need to know who the director is, but it really does permeate down. Like, you can tell, if a club has a director who's sane and normal and nice, that's who they tend to want coaching in the club. And then if they're crazy or like vindictive or like got all the wrong I call it loser mentality, that people think it's a winning mentality, but it's actually a losing mentality.
Is the director always there on first night of tryouts? Or the
No,
second night or
they
what?
might not even be there. But what I'm saying is, even if they're not there, it just permeates down into the club.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like if you walk into a gym, you could probably tell the vibe of the director based on the tone of the practice of some coach in the club. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, especially like if your coach is going, help me, help me. That's probably a sign that something is going on.
hostage crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
No, yeah, it's definitely palpable, like the culture of a club. So like Boy George,
Yeah,
Culture Club.
Culture Club.
Eric, do you know
Exactly.
who Culture Club is?
I know Boy George is. I don't
You've
know.
never heard of Culture Club?
I've never heard of it.
That was his band.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was gonna make that into a longer, more entertaining, drawn-out answer, but
Oh,
Done.
I
You're done.
saved you.
so do you
okay.
know?
You
Do you know the
saved
song "Karma Chameleon"?
Yes.
Okay, that's Culture Club.
Okay.
Boy George was the lead singer. Do you really want to
Thank
hurt
you.
me?
Oh, do you?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Do you really?
Oh, jeez.
That's how the song
That's
goes. Yeah, that's it. That's all you get for free.
That's right. Maybe in
You have
time.
to.
Yeah, it'll seep out through the show.
Mhm.
Seep out.
Yeah.
Seep out.
If the director, remember, shows up in a Porsche for the pizza party.
We talked about that.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
club fees, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Meach already hit the cost, the distance. There's so many things going. There's just like so cost, distance, playing time, quality of the coach, the dynamic with the inter-team dynamic, the cliquiness, the parents. There's like so many things you got to juggle here, right?
I was going to make a point about the schedule, the practice times. As Zuby noted, that
true.
It is really about how much touches your kid's going to get.
Yeah.
So
bottom line, volume is always a good thing.
Volume. That's right.
Yeah.
I guess, it's tricky because, I mean, no, I don't think any club has too much court time, but I think you're talking about not enough court time.
Yeah. Not being enough. Like if they're, having, one club is doing a once a week practice as opposed to, maybe shorter, even 3 nights practice, then that's something you want to consider. I mean, it's not a full decision, but
comes down to, I guess that's like personal preference for whatever, because the kid might be playing other stuff during the night, or the parents might be doing their own stuff. Right. So
I think the big risk today is that too many clubs are scheduling way too much for kids, thinking that that's going to be. A lot of clubs go for like 3 practices plus 2 workouts, and it's like burnout city, right? But they think that's what, that's part of that toxic culture vibe of like, we're gonna be champions, so you're gonna work out here, you're gonna work out there, and you're gonna play, and then you get knees and ankles and shoulders blown out because they're not doing preventative stuff. They're just
makes
burning
their whole life just about that club, right? Where like there's so much more going on in a teenage kid's life.
Yes,
it's not
and
just
a parent's
volleyball.
life,
and a parent's life.
Yeah. I think there's. People forget and underestimate, like, when we came up, Meach, it was like, we would be at the beach all day, 2 days, both days of the weekend playing nonstop. And then that made us better players. And when we played, we would sneak into gyms and play and it was, a lot of it was fun. And that's what made us high level players. Whereas the kids that are stuck in these regimented programs that are like, that's why we do our youth fours leagues too, because takes them out of that world of like, okay, there's nobody here telling you what to do. You're just playing and having fun, and we play music, and there's real value in that. And I consciously did that. And parents sometimes email us and like, how come there's no coaching? And we're like, well, I think kids get enough instruction every day of their lives. So
and I was worried because I wanted to say like volume is great, but I was about to say but quality of instruction or quality of the touches is important as well. But and it is, but I think just especially when they're learning, volume probably is slightly more important than quality of touches, or I guess quality of instruction on how to improve the forearm pass, the face pass, all this stuff. Because we've seen those fours leagues, like it's true, they just figure it out on their own, right? Like they're improving their movement to the ball, they're like, and then there's just the proprioception, they're improving their coordination, like so
even the adult clinics, remember?
Like
when we do adult clinics, sometimes the greatest thing is just them getting a chance. Like you teach them the fundamental, but then they just go and they get lots of touches, and in an environment where you're able to take risks, right? Because that's a huge thing. I think that joy.
Feel welcome to do that.
I think that joy is the biggest thing. If a kid is having fun, then they'll do the digging. Like a kid doesn't just love to play. Like, think about anything you ever loved in your life, right? You don't just love it and stop looking things up about it. You actually can't stop looking up things. I can look at my own kid, like she's volleyball crazy, and not because of me, not because I put it in her head. She's just volleyball crazy, and she watches it. She consumes it. She looks up videos. She, wants to play it as often as possible in some of the programs we run, even with adults, right? And just gets better through a lot of that, even though she hasn't had great coaching experience in her life. Now she did, but the mindset was there from us, like, showing her when she was little, I guess, some things. And then the passion makes you really, because you're going to be...
You're saying the joy is what triggers the passion.
The joy is
right?
what triggers... That's why I think fun is the most... That's what so many coaches miss.
Man.
That, like, you look at the end of the 14U bench or 14-year-old bench, and the guy or girl sitting at the end is, like, hating the sport. And so they're just going to quit.
Yeah.
And they're not going to look things up. They're not going to research. That's why I don't understand. So any coaches listening, like Erik said earlier, and we talked about this in Good Coach, Bad Coach, there is no reason why you can't start your A lineup game 1, B lineup game 2,
exactly,
and then third set put on whoever you want, right? Or or A lineup to get a huge lead.
Yeah.
Or if they're getting blown out, put your B players in, mix them in. Meach mentioned this in an earlier episode. Mix in so that good setter is playing with the backup outside. I hate that.
Yeah.
They put on the backup setter,
Full
the
swap.
back. Yeah, and then it's like, well, you can't see what anybody can do there. So yeah, that sort of ties in with that mentality thing about, if the club culture is win and over the top training and way too many touches, like crazy amount, then that's a red flag. And Meach did say the under one, but I think that's less of a problem these days. I think you got too many clubs acting like they're the pro teams today.
Yeah.
Like they think they're like, professional Olympic team stuff, and that's what they put that quantity on the kids.
The number of kids on the team might be a important factor, because again, I don't think you need necessarily 12. Like that would be good and bad, I suppose, if you have 12 players, and then you can at least have 2 full team scrims. But even if you don't have 12, you can still have great scrims, like where you're just doing 4-on-4 or 3-on-3 or 5-on-5
Or
type
6
things.
with 3 blockers.
Or 6 with 3, exactly. Like so you can still do tons of good quality reps. Even if you don't have 12. So maybe
especially at the older age groups, sometimes you lose the team. Like I think my daughter's team is at 9 or 10 right now. Yeah, and it's a good number. Like they can run some good drills. They have a good coach this year. Really happy with the coach.
You can do really good drills like that. Yeah.
How great is it to be able to play with 4-5 players, sometimes, so that you get that coverage, that you get that defense, learning to fill in when another player is not there. Man, that's good for that.
Yeah, and just so we did the 4s leagues because players learn to read. Right.
Yeah.
So many players, when they're 6, you can hide on the court, especially young age groups. Right. But when it's 4s, they become so aggressive at chasing the ball down, almost to the point where you worry about them being out of position when they're 6. But it's good, because the number one problem with young players is they're too timid, and they're afraid to go after the ball. So with 4s, you're like, just tell them, hey, look, there's nobody else here. It's got to be you. And they become very aggressive players in a good way. And they also, I noticed too, like in our, like some of the young kids are trying overhand serves, and there's nobody cares if they miss. It's really great to see, because that kid's going to overhand serve before the kid that's probably on some team where they're not allowed to, right?
That's right.
One of my favorite drills was like 3-on-3 back row only.
Yes,
I freaking love that.
Yeah, because reading,
so much fun.
digging.
Yeah, it's just like you get a rally going where all of a sudden, you get a dig, and then you get a hit it back, and then they dig it, and just like it turns into this crazy thing, and then just pure, like, so much fun, right? And then like the intensity just cranks up. And
when you're exhausted at the
end
of it,
and you win it,
and you win it, and you feel like it's
or you
like
lose
it.
it.
Or you lose it. You still have fun.
Whatever it is,
Yeah, you get that high of doing, right? That joy of experience.
And then you want it again, and then you just get into the back of the line, and you literally go again.
Right? And then 6 becomes too many.
Get out. Like, I got this.
It's true. It's true. Coming back after beach season, you're like, there's way too many people here. But no, it's definitely, I think that there's the culture of the club. Here's what I was thinking about when we were talking about the joy, and Erik, you were saying how it's a lot of things for parents to take in. But I think that if you go to a tryout, and parents sometimes need to trust their gut and recognize that they have more power than they think. Parents walk into gyms. The problem is they don't know the research, they don't know the sport, and they walk in the gym, and the club has all the power. So the parents is just hoping their child gets picked. So they're in defensive mode. They're not in offensive mode. Damn. I tell parents to go into a tryout thinking of not just a tryout for their kid. They are trying out the coach in the club. Mm-hmm. Think of it as a tryout for the coach in the club. Because we've gone into practice at our tryouts, and I said, you don't want to play for them, do you? And my kid's like, nope. Because they had like 60 kids waiting on the sidelines, one kid at a time doing a drill, horribly organized practice. Whereas I know that other parents were sitting in there going, like, they didn't have any we talked about organizational respect. The parents sometimes don't have any self-respect.
You're probably blown away that those parents were still there. Yeah. Why haven't they left?
Well, I know
the
they're fighting amongst themselves to get a spot on that team, even though they just watched a thing where the practice was so poorly organized. And you don't need to be a volleyball person to know that, hey, should kids be sitting down
Yeah.
during tryouts? Like, should kids be waiting an hour in a lineup during tryouts? It's not, they're not trying to get their driver's license. They're trying to get a serve receive
Good
in.
point.
So, I mean, just like parents need to, like, honestly walk into the tryout, but because they're so afraid of the club and, you know, they want their kid to get picked, they don't have that offensive mentality. You're the paying customer here, and you need to put that club on trial a little bit. And if you're seeing, I think the number one, if you see a kind coach who is conscientious, that's it. Like a kind coach, because a kind coach won't bench your kid for like 8 games straight. A kind coach, and if they're conscientious, they might look stuff up. You know, at the end of the day, like we've had coaches that, you know, I played soccer a lot when I was a kid. I had coaches that were for our kids that didn't know soccer, admitted they didn't know soccer, but they looked stuff up. They were open to learning,
Right.
and they were kind.
It's tough to spot genuine kindness though in
just a tryout.
amongst
true.
softness,
Even in life.
amongst complacency, right? Like, yeah, even in life, but like, because the coach may appear kind, but maybe they're just like a pushover or something, right?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yes, yeah, you don't
That's
want
what I
to put.
mean.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, that's the fine
mean-
line. You don't want to push over. I mean, kind, like caring about the athletes. Yeah, you're right. Because even
just
kindness
hard.
would also be reflected in how good the tryout is, right?
Yeah.
Because a coach who cares about kids puts together a good tryout practice.
Yeah, that's true. So
Coaches who
maybe-
don't kind of, you know, fly. I was in a tryout this year with a very reputable club, and I saw the coach was like running this like, okay, what are we gonna do? Oh, geez, I wasn't expecting so many people here. He literally said that out loud, and he was like, okay, and it was just like
Oh, man.
weird. And then we were in the drill way too long, and there was no goal in the drill.
Yeah,
And I was just like, this is weird. And this is a high-level player, by the way. High-level player for good varsity program, graduate.
Yeah.
But just seemed off. Like,
Just out of
it
it.
was not. It was just like really, really bad.
it sucks when you're in a drill like that and then it hits you like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah. Well, the other thing too that tied in with that, so actually I forgot about that. Another one of the points was that the coaches sometimes set up the drills, going back to that buddy thing, and then they don't even watch. Have you ever seen that?
Yes. Just do this for
just go.
20 minutes and
Yeah.
we'll get back to you.
And we're in tryout mode here.
Yeah.
Like that's where you know that coach already has their list,
Yeah,
and they're just here for show. And I'm like, what are you even looking at? Like, what are?
and you'll have the one player off to the side, like stretching or something, while the coach is talking to them, and the rest of the
Yeah.
people are just doing it.
Or they're
and-
just talking with other coaches,
Yeah.
and they're not even watching. I'm looking, even in practice, like even after the team is made, I sometimes wonder, why aren't coaches, like when I was coaching, I was always assessing who's pushing who's getting better.
Yeah,
Like I'm like, oh shoot, I like that serve. I'm gonna tell that kid to try that serve in a game, or oh, that player's really. I found this too. So this is something very interesting. Okay, I only saw this in club, and as a teacher, I saw this too. There's this weird tendency where I don't think people like to think. So I noticed that the putting a player in a box is like bizarrely crazy. Like, so like I would see players. So like this is like, you know, my daughter's early club things, right? And I would come in and help coach once in a while. And the head coach would tell a kid that they can't do something. Okay. Like you can't overhand serve. You're too small. Right. And then, you know, in practice we would work on it, and then they'd get it, and they would do it in practice. And the coach still wouldn't tell them not to do it. Cause in my head, that person can't overhand serve.
but
And
they would still at the same time teach them how to do the overhand.
well,
serve.
I would.
Oh, you
Yeah,
would.
well, you would.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I would work with the kids on how to do it, and I'd say, like, you know, this coach was very open minded. In fairness, he would say like he asked me to come help out because he knew who we are, and
Uh-huh.
so I said, yeah, no, and you get the kid to do the skill, and I had the whole team doing it, and then the next year, so I wasn't at that same club, but all the players told me that, yeah, we're not allowed to overhand serve. I'm like, what? After we did that? Like, they did it successfully.
Holy.
And it's strange. And then also the other thing I noticed is that, like, so a player will clearly start outperforming another player, like, during the season. Like, this has happened.
Yeah.
Every team we've been on, we see a player, oh, they're really blossoming. They're coming into their own here. But these they just keep starting the same
Yeah.
people. And,
Yeah.
you know, it could be in favor, or, you know, it doesn't matter which kid it is. But, like, you're like, that kid should be playing more. And nope, they're just, the coach has it in their head. And it's not that they're, I don't know what it is. It's like, is it the ability to not question what we think? Is it a struggle? Is it harder to rethink? You know, is it? But it's just.
I see what you mean. That's why you.
And teachers
that's what
do
you
it.
meant by they don't want to think, right? They just want to keep it the same.
Teachers do it all the time too.
Yeah,
right? They put kids, like how many students have been put in a box by a teacher, and then it doesn't matter what that kid does. You know, or their sibling. That's the other big one, right?
It's almost like a bluff call. It's like, it's like I know what I'm doing.
But you know that one where they're like, "Oh, you're such and such's younger brother or sister. You must be X," and then you're nothing like them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're shocked when you're a different person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a different person.
Yeah. I was born 4 years later, and
Different lovemaking situation for my parents.
that's right. So
No,
why
but like
should I be?
that's where I think that you know, going back into that kindness and conscientiousness, that humility, you know, you don't want to be a pushover coach, but at the same time, you have to be humble enough to know that, okay, I don't know. I don't even understand. I can't even understand it. I'm constantly looking at things I do and revising, tweaking, fixing. I don't understand the mentality that just says, yeah, we're set. And it doesn't matter what people do. Yeah, it's crazy.
You can spot kindness with a keen eye. Like you're saying, if they're making sure everyone has, just treated fairly or whatever, everyone gets the opportunity to try this drill.
Or how organized the drills are.
Yeah,
that's a sign of kindness, I think, right? Because you're valuing the players.
Yeah, you're respecting the players. Yeah,
you know, and the parents' money.
And on it, like the tryout is already like it's volleyball. It should have a goal already for, even though the team is undetermined, the club or the team or the coach already has a vision of, you know, they want to work, like they want to improve, right? So you already get that vibe of what the greater goal is. I would think in a tryout, in the right
setting,
the
right team, like the team idea, not like glory of, you know, gold medal, 12-year-old gold medal, or
yeah.
Like my goal is to make. I wish coaches would just adopt a mentality and make this their first night speech, where my goal is to make every player here a better athlete and a better person by the end of the year. That's it. Mm-hmm. If you could keep that in the back of your head, better person, right? Because I don't know. I think people forget what the goal of sports are. Like, you know, like we post some stuff on social media and it gets like hate from people who just don't understand that, you know, the goal of sport isn't to make everybody a pro athlete. The goal of sport is to make people better people. It's replicating, right? Like you said at the top, how do you get along with people? How do you socialize? How do you treat others? Are you driven when you need to be?
But I think people in general are a lot more afraid to speak up and point things out, and this includes coaches. You know, like if you see something wrong happening, like if you see someone attacked or whatever, you're obligated to intervene and save them and stuff, right? So if you see because I remember this when I was younger, like you would see a guy on one of my teammates, he would do something stupid, and then the coach in that moment just took action and, you know, had some disciplinary intervention. Like they just pointed it out, you know, depending on the nature of it, and then it was just kind of like dealt with right there. So maybe we're seeing complacency where these coaches are afraid to actually intervene, because if the goal is to improve and to become better people, well, there's a line drawn of like what a good person is and what bad qualities are. And sometimes that line will get hit, right? That's just that's how trial and error. And then the coach is the one who should be the one pointing out, hey, this is a poor quality, and it's typically some social related thing. This is not how we want to be as athletes, because we're going to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and this is what we want to do. So therefore, you know, correct the action type thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's how you keep getting. So maybe is that what's happening? Like there's more complacency where it's not being pointed out.
I think what it is there's too many coaches that have the same quality that's producing toxic behavior among teammates is producing the toxic behavior in the coach. It's that, you know, insecurity. I'm not going to discipline it because, I think I think the same way, right?
So if they're right.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not that there's like people are afraid. It's like they don't even see it as wrong.
Right.
They don't even see it as wrong.
That means there's no like hierarchical difference between the coach and the players. Yeah. I mean, there always was the respect, you know, like the respect up to your coach. And, you know, my coaches respect me as well. They were like decent, kind. They were never like abusive or anything. But they were the one that when I goofed off or something, they let me know. And
They
then,
had boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like if I did something stupid, you know, you may have to go like run a lap or something, or a few laps or
So
something
let's
like that.
connect this. Let's connect this back to what we said earlier about that coach who's buddy in tryouts. Do you see why they don't discipline these players?
Yeah, right.
Because they're
Right.
so insecure. They need this
Right.
buddy thing with the player.
If that,
So they'll never come down on the best player on the team or the
Yeah.
cool player on the team because they're too insecure. You have to be a confident person
yeah.
to lay down the law. I always tell people there's an easy path or there's the right path, and almost never is the right choice the easy choice. Like I tell my kids all the time, you know, I could make my life easier by letting you go to every party, letting you stay out all night, letting you not do your schoolwork, letting you, you know, it's much easier for me not to do that fight. But I don't need to be that parent. I don't need to be your buddy. I have self-esteem. I don't need my kids to, you know, I'm not going to give you chocolate anytime you want it just so you'll like me, right? You know what I mean? But insecure parents and insecure coaches let the boundary, they don't follow those boundaries because they're too busy focusing on trying to be liked.
Yeah.
And that's why that buddy,
compromised.
that's why if you do see a coach being buddy in tryouts with players too much,
Yeah.
that's a red flag that they're going to let the team culture be absolute shit, because they'll have different rules for different players. They're showing it to you. They're screaming it at you. So parents, like, just keep your eye out for that. You don't want that coach, because that is how you do. Remember I said it before, how you do anything is how you do everything. That coach, the way they're behaving in tryouts is exactly how they're going to behave in the middle of a game, middle of a season.
Yeah.
Your kid shows up late, there's going to be, oh, we're benching you. That kid shows up late, they're going to be starting. That's because they need the external validation. The approval. Yeah. It's like, you know, we all know this. Like, Erik Meach, you know this as a parent too. It's easy to say yes, right, to everything.
Yeah.
But when you have to put your foot down, way more energy, but only confident parents do it.
Yeah. And it has to be done. Like you don't let your kid jump off a bridge just because, oh, it'll be easy and they'll really like me. But,
Yes.
you know, the results wouldn't be great at all.
I used to say when the kids were little, like, people would say, other parents would say, oh, but they love doing it. I said, you know what else kids love doing? They love playing soccer on the highway. But you don't do it because they'll die.
Yeah.
So, you know, everything's fun to a kid. Like, you know, farting in public is fun, but we don't do that.
That's right. At least not
Not the loud ones.
not the loud ones. Yes.
But those are the worst. But at least you can just sort of do like,
That's right.
there's nobody there. Sorry, my head twitches when I fart really bad. Yes.
When someone else farts really bad.
Yeah, but there's nobody there, so I'm admitting that it's my fart. So
I wish you had admitted it there.
right now,
Yeah.
that I farted? I didn't fart. Erik farted.
What are you talking about? You guys are the old guys. You're, you know, old guys fart.
Well,
More
I shit my pants, but I didn't fart.
Oh,
It's a shart.
nice.
Anyway, we'll be right back after I change my pants.
Yeah.
Or will I?
Only we will know.
Scratch and Sniff podcast. Okay, so I have some. So here's what I had for good signs, and then we'll just zip through these, just because I feel like it's good though that comes up naturally through conversation. Isn't that nice? Nice how we do that.
It's good.
It's like
It's a
we
natural flow.
Yeah, natural flow.
Organized.
Speaking of shitting your pants, natural flow.
That was a good point though, of the self-confidence in the coach.
That's what it is.
yeah.
Because you can't be.
And I remember like playing. It's like I wanted. I think when I had a confident coach, they weren't praising me all the time, right? And then when I did seek praise, it was because I was actually trying hard to get better and like to chase that ball down. And then when it actually worked, like they saw me struggle, and then they saw the improvement happen, then, you know, they would give me praise or whatever. And then that was huge, right?
Meant more.
Yeah, especially like it took like 3 weeks or 4 or 6 weeks or something to get that ball, and then all of a sudden you get it. It's just like such an unreal feeling. So whether, you know, and it's the same thing if if you had misbehaved or something, you kind of want to gain that respect back by showing how respectful and kind you can be. If you made a mistake of being rude or something, then there's nothing. I would take that as the same challenge. I remember being like that as a kid, right? I would do something rude, and then I'd be corrected on it, and then I would reflect on it. You think of how embarrassing it is, and then you want to be a better person, right? Mm-hmm. And then you would, again, and you may not get any praise for it, but you'd practice that kindness.
Chasing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
no,
then,
I said this too, and that's what we talked about.
Chasing it, yeah.
That self-esteem. Remember we said the self-esteem of the parent, the self-esteem of the organization. Like I found, like people have it backwards. They think that they'll get respect from people by giving in all the time. Mm-hmm. You'll never get respect by giving in.
Yeah.
You'll only get respect by asking people to raise their level. So when I was a teacher, I remember all the other teachers were giving out like super easy marks, just because they thought that was their ticket. That was their way of not getting flack from parents, not getting flack from kids. Just give out high marks. Yeah, that's the solution, right? Because it's too many headaches. But those kids never liked those teachers. The kids that were getting 95s, they didn't respect the teachers that were giving them 95s. They respected the teachers that were giving them 70s or 85s with an explanation. Not just for the sake. Yeah, right. Not. I don't mean just being a hard ass for the sake of being a hard ass, because that's the other mistake. Okay. I mean the people who knew what they were talking about, but made the kid work harder. Yeah. Right? And same with parents, right? Like, I mean, my kids, they kind of have a sense that I'm very honest with them. Yes, they don't think I'm a hard ass, but they know that I'm very honest with them, right? And honest means, okay, you can do what you want, but I think this is a dumb move because of this. Mm-hmm. Whereas some parents will be like, no, whatever, that's a great idea. You do what you want. I read that on social media, that you have to follow your dreams. Nope. Not if you're, you can follow your dreams, but make sure that you're not being irrational. And sometimes telling people that seems like a party pooper, or why would you just encourage them? Well, I'll encourage them to be smart. I'll encourage them to make wise decisions. And same with coaches and same with parents. Like, you have to have some self-esteem, right? So when the kid messes up, you call them out on it, and you have a consequence. It's harder to do as a coach, especially when it's your best player, right? It's the superstar who's done something. But you know what you do when that moment happens, or if that moment happens, you get 11 other players who will go through a brick wall for you.
Yeah.
And so will that superstar, by the way. Yeah. And you know what? If they don't,
they're probably dying for it because.
Yeah. But if they don't, if that superstar doesn't go through a wall for you and gets pissed at you, guess what that means? They have no superstar quality. Mm-hmm. They're already proving to you that they are a loser. I hate to say that for a kid, and because they can learn it. Yeah. But that kid is proving to you that they're not the superstar. Yeah. And the superstar somewhere else in that heap of 12 players that you might be sitting on the bench. So, yeah. Rant over. Sorry. Too dramatic. Headphone drop. Can't even drop these mics if we try.
So those points that you were going to run through.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Meach. I'm just coming off a high. And plates were all mad. No, it's good. So I said, good things for me in a practice. So organized. So a club in general. Some clubs don't email you. Some clubs have weird things that pop up and you never hear about them. And it's like just they're not organized. So if a parent's getting an early vibe that the club's not organized, that's a red flag for me. Like gym cancellations last minute, or you show up and everything's locked up and you didn't get nobody emailed you. These are little things that clubs can happen. But again, if you have that mentality in your head that how you do anything is how you do everything, just remember that'll you'll carry through. Your hotel won't be booked. You'll show up, there'll be no volleyballs one day. Good communication, part of that same thing. I said if a club is good at communicating, and in some of those communications you can also gauge tone that comes through those emails. I like there's some clubs that send us some stuff and you're like, okay, this club has the right mentality on things, I like so we talked, this hits on so many things, but player development is the club's focus on player development or chasing down championships. I again, there's so many people that defend this winning championships. Club is for winning, but again, the higher level you've played, the more you realize that these club games are meaningless. And it's I don't care how good it's not crap volleyball, but it's not high level volleyball yet. It's just they should treat it like a practice with scoreboards, right? Sure. And so many people think that means that you're not into winning, but it's about winning in the long term when it matters, not short term winning, right? I had kind coach. It's a good thing to look for. Welcoming club culture. That's another one. You walk into some gyms, some of these club teams, they're like toxic.
Yeah, it's got to be
snooty. Who are you? Like, even the parents give you that vibe, like you're an outsider. A lot of parents talk about that in club world.
I think that's why kids are like, or any players are oftentimes afraid to go hard and be aggressive. Especially when they're not, because when they're not welcomed, 100%. They feel like they're embarrassed or something for trying hard.
Great point.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's such a weird it
is a weird thing. I just realized right when you were describing it there. It's like, because that's the only way I'm able to. I guess I give less shits now that I'm older. Yes. But when I was that age,
self-conscious, eh? Because it's kind of a metaphor for adult life, isn't it? Like, this is why adults don't go for shit. Because what if I fail?
Yeah,
that's what that kid's thinking.
That's what it was like.
What if I slip and I fall on my face?
And I just did this thing where I tried so hard and then I messed up, and then it's like, oh, I'm an outcast. Oh, great, now I look weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a guy did a presentation once when I was teaching, and he talked about this weird thing that happens to kids once they hit the teenage years. I think it was something called a banana peel thing. I don't know if this guy had a book too, but the idea that there's a day, and maybe I don't know if you guys remember it in your lives, where you stopped being the silly I'll laugh at anything type of guy into the I'm gonna act cool now because I'm in middle school or something. Or do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That age where you don't laugh like a free child anymore. You've got that self-consciousness in you now, where you're got to worry about your image. I think that's sort of what you're talking about.
Sometime in high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I see.
I remember a day when I was in grade 6, okay? And I remember, because I was in grade 6 all of a sudden.
So you don't remember yesterday, but you remember stuff from grade 6?
Yeah, usually when I'm crying on the toilet, stuff comes back to me in a flood.
Is this a traumatic story? Is that what you're going to tell us?
It is traumatic, yeah. Actually, I don't think I can tell it.
Or was it? Are you going to make it dramatic right now?
No, it's just an interesting observation.
Okay.
Another interesting tidbit from my life story.
Let's hear it.
It's from my memoir.
Grade 6.
The R is silent. No, in grade 6, I remember consciously showing up first day of school, and I remember they painted the swing set at my elementary school over the summer, and I remember swearing look, they painted the fucking swing set, and I remember thinking, I think I'm gonna swear here because I'm in grade 6 now.
You remember that? What?
Well, I remember these little moments. Yeah, like I remember thinking it was odd.
And then you swore.
I swore because I felt like I had to be a big kid.
And then Miss Golder hurt you.
Nobody heard me. Who did you say heard me?
Miss Golder. What was her last name? Golder or?
Where are you? We did not go to the same. You were.
She might have been there when you guys went there.
Decades apart. Eric,
I know what school you guys went to.
Eric, I'm old enough to be your father. Meach didn't go there.
It's a school name that.
Meach didn't go to that school.
Yeah.
Which one?
You didn't go to the Hampton Junior.
No.
Meach went to.
You did.
I did.
Golder was there.
I did.
She probably
was.
was
there when I was there. How much older am I than you? You're 35.
You're 12 years older than I am.
12 going on 13.
She was old when I was there, so she's probably there.
But they all transferred schools.
Yeah, true, maybe.
Miss Golder's probably listening, going, "I'm still here. I'm still here." I don't know why she had that accent. But anyway, so I remember. So there's that self-conscious, like that whole image of I'm old now. I'm gonna act older.
Yeah,
and I think that's tied in with that, like self-consciousness and fear.
Well, we see that all the time in youth volleyball, right? They just want to stand there. They don't want to, especially when they're around new kids that they don't know. They don't want to try hard.
Yes, it is interesting. Yeah, you just wish. And you wish you could just lose that, right? Tell them. That's why I tell the kids. I
by
do
playing sport. You shed it,
and that's why we did the Fours League too, just to tie with it. Because I tell them, there's nobody else there. You got to go.
Yeah,
and that's the bigger. It's funny that their embarrassment of not letting the ball drop doesn't trump their embarrassment of but isn't this all just a metaphor for everybody's lives?
They would rather lose the point
or just live the crappier life than go for it.
Yeah,
like this is the artist versus the everyday person who drives to work and.
Interesting, and you
Well,
first
it's
see
the
it there
same-
in that age group. Like,
Yeah.
as you're saying, at the age of when you stop laughing like a little kid and you become into that, it's like you're more
Self-conscious.
you're more
Self-conscious, self-aware, fear of failure.
and that's
It's better not to try it
right.
than to try it and fail.
That's like the thing of reacting to life instead of acting
Yes.
in life,
Yeah.
right? Kind of creating your own path and just like letting, or versus just being swept with the tide, I suppose.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Letting everything dictate circumstances to you versus taking control of circumstances.
Yeah.
And you know,
Which really just makes things worse if we're talking
Yeah.
about mental wellness here. Like
mm,
just having your life dictated by your inaction.
yeah, leads to powerlessness.
to
It's
not
kind of what
act.
we're talking about too, with the parents feeling powerless at tryouts.
Yeah.
You know, coaches feeling powerless over players or not taking control of a situation. We admire those people, the people that take those leaps and aggressive steps. So coaches, like, you know, be clear with your expectations
There
and
used to
follow
be-
through.
Yeah, there used to be more of them, and now there's less of them.
Yeah, I think as
Because
society.
it's almost like a shunned thing. Or
Well, we talked about this in, was it Good Coach, Bad Coach, where we talked about the society sort of headed in that self-loathing, the more insecure
Yeah.
we become as a culture with social media. And
yeah. It's
the more
definitely social media
we get
connected.
more insecure, less confident, you know, blindly trust authority figures with no independent thinking. It's kind of, you know, systemic societal issue that is manifesting itself in every
Yeah.
sport, right?
And that's why I think we have to go back to those tryouts. Like, the tryout to me was that part of my life where I took a separate leap of faith in myself to say, hey, I might make it, I might not,
I know.
but I'm going to try.
Yeah, there were a good nervous
Yeah.
moments.
Could you imagine if your coach just said
Good
to you,
stress.
Can you imagine if your coach said to you in that era, like, don't worry about it, you're on the team?
Yeah.
It almost
Yeah, true.
it almost would kill the fun.
What kind of person would that form? Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Guaranteed outcome.
Yeah.
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 But the
I-
trying out is the actual challenge that gave that spark. That
Yeah.
will I do it? Will I be able to come up to the challenge?
It's no longer a tryout, it's just out.
Yeah.
That's right.
You're out. Do I have to try? No.
That's right.
This is just an out.
You're out
Yeah,
of the
it's just
tryout
an
into the team.
You out. You out. You out.
You
No, you made it.
Yeah, you came out. You came out, but you don't have to try.
Yeah.
So it is no
Yeah,
longer
yeah.
tryout. You just come out.
That's right.
You're on the team. Yay.
And the ones that didn't make it, in.
What? That doesn't make any sense. Just I got to think of an opposite.
That's right.
No, it's just weird, but it's such a again. It goes back to, and the kids who accept it are doing it like, so. I one of my points on, like, one of my second last points was like the kids who want to stay with the club. That's a good sign that kids want to stay with the club. But are they just staying because they have a guaranteed offer?
Yeah, right.
Like that.
right.
That's not a good measure, because that just, again, an insecure player is terrified they won't make it anywhere else. So okay, I'll snatch that offer. So that's not a good sign either these days,
No.
because these offer sheets are. I hate that. It's like, like, you want the player to be coming back to that club. Like, that's a good sign if players are dying to come back and play for that club, but not the way that with this advance offer thing,
Yeah.
because that's just a easier thing they're clinging to. So. And then the last good sign I had is, I already said it, inclusive, laid back parents. That
Yeah.
was good. And then I had a long list of bad signs. Shall I go through them and we can discuss them, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or do you have things,
Yeah.
Eric, that you want to hit?
No. Well, I think,
I'm sure there's overlap anyway.
While
so.
you go through, yeah.
Crazy must win vulture. I'm sure that's supposed to say culture. Or could it be vulture? You don't want to play in a club where there's a crazy must win vulture.
Yeah.
That'd be a
That'd
nightmare.
terrifying. Squawking at you all the time,
I hate vultures.
just looking at you, looking to pick your bones.
Pick my what?
Pick your bones.
Crazy must win vulture. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna assume that's supposed to say culture.
Did you guys know that they migrate in like huge flocks?
I didn't know that.
Vultures,
Like the turkey vultures, right?
turkey vultures.
Yeah, I've
Or is
never
that are they called?
turkey. You never seen turkey vulture? You never seen one?
Yeah.
It's the big, winged bird.
I
It's
just
got,
thought
like,
that was
the,
a turkey.
No, if you look at their head, they typically are scavengers. They eat like roadkill and stuff.
I know vulture.
I know
Like,
what you
what's the difference between a turkey vulture and a regular vulture?
Well, I guess there's just different kinds of. Around here, we don't have any regular vultures. We have turkey vultures.
That's what they're called, eh?
Yeah,
You
they
knew this,
have
Meach?
they have the
Yeah.
funny they have
How
the
do
funny
you-
looking
Where-
head.
Because I saw
did I
one.
miss an episode?
yeah, maybe.
This is pure facts, but
Straight
not until
truth.
not
Okay,
until
tell me more.
seeing one
Mm-hmm.
did I know there was a different type of vulture. Like there's
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
4 or 5 types of vultures.
Yeah,
but-
and I think here where we are, we only have I don't know. I know we have the one. I don't think we have another one, but it just has the funny like looking head, and it's a big bird. It's like they're big, man. But I didn't even know they migrated. Apparently they migrate, and apparently they migrate in huge
So they
flocks.
fly. These turkey
Yeah.
vultures
Yeah.
fly.
Whenever you see them, they just soar, and they have like the fingery feathers on the ends of their wings.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Some birds have like the closed edges.
Mm-hmm.
These guys will have the big anyways, and you'll see them. They're just big black birds, but they have the funny looking head where there's no feathers on their head.
Shit.
where-
Okay, yes, I
where-
have seen them. Then I just didn't know
They're
what they
everywhere
were. I
around
just
here.
didn't know what they were. I thought they were. I
Yeah.
thought they were just turkeys, like
Where-
ugly
where-
turkeys.
Well, those ones can.
Those
like,
turkeys-
man, can they fly like
Really?
like no others. But when you
Normal turkeys can only fly a little bit.
See, the
Yeah.
further we go into this, a
They're too fat.
fascinating story. All I can think about is all the fucking editing I'm gonna have to do.
Yeah, true.
keep it in, this is what viewers want to hear.
Viewers
Probably
want to
not.
see.
See,
Here? No, I'm just kidding. Of course we'll leave this in. This is how stupid my friends are. No. Actually, they're teaching me something. So turkey vulture. So now are these crazy must-win turkey vultures?
Well, they
Like,
win
are
at
they-
life because they weren't dead. The ones I saw, anyways.
Okay, so they're winning at life.
They're winning.
But are they win at all costs? Like, I hate those turkey vultures.
I mean, I think vultures kind of get a bad rep. You know, like
Yeah.
people think they're all about the winning,
Right.
but they're.
Is it bad rep or bad rap?
I think. Wait.
People say bad rap,
Yeah.
but it
bad
should be
rep.
bad rep.
Right. No, repute. Ooh.
Reputation.
No. Yeah, but isn't is it reputation? But isn't repute rapute?
Rap.
It's not repute, or is it repute? Ooh.
or a
don't know.
short form.
I think repute is a form for reputation.
Reputation.
Yes, of course.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
root word.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this is more editing for Zuby.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
So
You guys are
You're
gonna start
willing
doing
to
this
do
on
the work.
purpose. You guys are gonna start yelling
kind
out
of doing
random
it on
things.
purpose. Yeah.
Green, yellow, purple, fart monkey,
Ooh.
That's it.
turkey vulture.
Let's
Anyway.
speak about that.
So these are bad signs, okay? For if your parent walks into a club practice, if there's a crazy must-win vulture, oh fuck, here we go again. If there is a crazy must-win culture among the club, karma chameleon. How about if it's
What's
club
next?
focused, not player focused? So one thing I hate is when the club is only worried about the club, and they
Oh, and they're
only-
like spitting out a bunch of stats. We had this many wins last
Yeah.
year, and like we made it to this many championships, and blah blah blah. We've been in the business
Yes.
for this many years.
As
Yeah.
opposed-
and we
As
bench players, so because the club.
What do you mean they say that?
No, but I mean, like, if you like, again, buddy, coaches toxic, talking about winning well, even if they give you the speech on how many
You saw them
medals,
last season. You saw how many
yeah, or if their
players they
website has all this stuff about how much they win, how much they do, maybe not even stories about alumni players, right? Like, if there's a club that's talking about the players that have developed through there versus the number of championships they've won, that's a
Right.
good early red flag, right? Or if they give
Right.
you the speech about how great they are, not about how they, like, if they don't talk about player development in their parent emails and then their, like, if all they talk about is club success, not player development, like I think it's there's a real clear line in clubs. Clubs either tell you that they're pro player development or they want to win championships. So winning championships means they're going to bench players at young ages.
Yeah.
So they can win more medals. If they talk about developing players so they can win more in the senior ages, that's cool. That's great, right? I mean, that was sort of like the club we talked about. Remember the small club locally that lost a lot when they were younger?
Yeah.
But by the time they were adults, those players kicked the ass
They're dominant,
of the players that were winning the championships at 14, 15U, and they walked around like they were king shit. And they got their asses handed to them by those kids they used to beat because they developed players there, right? Developing. So this ties in with life too. Another philosophical idea that's going to come through this podcast, I think, all the way through is short-term success versus long-term success. So many people think that short-term success matters so much, but really what you want to do is not care about losing in the short term, and then you win in the long term. But everybody takes this now. I mean, part of the club season, we talked about this a little bit too. Like, if you're worried about winning in this little season, like this season's championship is the end. No, it's not the end, right? It's just one more step on a very long journey to real success. And I think society has that messed up, where we think of everything short term, right?
Yeah.
Talk to any turkey vulture.
That's right.
And
They'll tell you.
Sometimes I have to circle for hours before that guy gets hit by a car.
Long term. That's right.
Long-term approach.
That's right. I'm not going for the fries the seagulls are going for.
Yeah.
I'm taking the long-term approach.
I'm going to eat the seagull when it dies.
Yeah,
when
that's
ODs on
right.
fries.
That's right.
That's a vulture.
Mm-hmm.
But I regress.
Yeah, like I don't think I don't remember caring too much about the season end championships when I played, because I just knew that I was going to be back playing next year or whatever. Like I shouldn't say like this is obviously me flashing back like 15 years ago, but I guess it was a bummer when you lost, but yeah, it wasn't about that. Like, because if you just made it all about that one season or whatever, then that also promotes the idea that we're as good as we're going to be right now or whatever. Where, you know, if you're not, you know, if you're not thinking that way and you happen to lose out or whatever, and you get a few months off, you get to go play beach, and you come back and you start the whole process over again, right? It's just like, yeah.
See it as part of the
process
journey.
is still going.
You got to think about it. Most teams aren't going to make it to the championship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
That's the other thing, yeah.
that's
Right.
where that long-term development is, what you're able to accomplish in the season or with your team, you know, to get better. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a point that a lot of coaches make today. That I've heard the counter argument. A lot of coaches tell other coaches, only one team wins the championship.
Yeah.
So what's our goal here, right? What's the rest?
Yeah,
What are the
you have
rest
to
of us
be-
do?
you have to
All
be
failure?
yeah, you
This
have
whole
to be-
year is a waste of time.
Right. You have to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the club focus, not player. Fees don't match coaching quality. That's another thing. I think parents, when they see that big price tag, big loud club.
I guess we didn't talk a lot about fee, but it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
right?
I just think that it needs to match the coaching quality. I would tend to ask, again, give me just that parent self-esteem thing. Don't be afraid to ask, like, you know, what
cost breakdown.
can I see resume, or not cost breakdown, even like, even just can I see a resume on the coach, or you know, dig around the website and see if it's real. And coaching club and school volleyball for 30 years is not a qualification. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. I see that all the time on club teams. Like, oh, he's been coaching or she's been coaching with the club for 20 years, or she's been in the game her whole life. Well, tell me where. Tell me where they played. If it's just, you know, high school or public school coaching legend, sorry, that doesn't count. I can be a club coach. Anybody can be a club coach for 40 years. Tomorrow, you could start. You know, a turkey vulture could go coach volleyball. Those crazy winning bastards. And no, but that's not a qualification. So, if you're paying a lot of money at your club, then I think you have a right to ask. Or if it's not on the website, that's another red flag. Like, if they're not telling you, oh, this coach played here, played there, coached here, coached there. That's what you want. You want the player combination that turned into a coach, not just player. I have to, like, you know, I don't want everybody to think that every great players can suck at coaching.
They could be an exceptional individual who's trying very hard to become a good coach, but that means they're definitely interacting with good players or former good players. You have to.
Yes, but if you're paying at club junior ranks, you know, double, triple, quadruple the price of other clubs.
Good point.
I think they better have their shit together. Like, we're not here. We're not paying for your classes, coach.
Yeah,
And I'm not letting you experiment with my kid while they have 4 years of learning, right? And it's yes, there's long-term thinking, but part of long-term thinking is not putting your kid in a shitty situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, someone who doesn't have experience handling those things, disciplining players in the right way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, fees don't match coaching quality. What about severe physical punishments for mistakes. Again, this is hard to see in tryouts because there's not, but so many coaches still punish kids with like excessive amounts of running the next day. I'm like,
what about just, severe physical stuff as just part of like the warm up? Like it doesn't even, it doesn't have to be severe, but like good physical warm ups were the first 20 minutes where you're like running boards and stuff like that. Like,
oh yeah, that's
like,
good.
Yeah. Like that's just good for your body. Right.
Yes.
It's like, and it's almost better in a way when it's done when they're not as a consequence to something. It's just
it's exclusively. It shouldn't be a consequence.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
You're only teaching kids that's exercise is bad.
Instead, we're teaching exactly exercise is good, and then I love the challenge between when you're running lines or whatever. Like you want to beat your buddy beside you or something like that, right? Mm-hmm.
Or fake an injury if you're losing.
Yeah, and then it
got any ice over there?
It sets the tone for practice as well, right? You're gonna try hard. And that's what.
Yeah, I just mean like if you see a coach that like there's still coaches, and I remember I told you guys that thing that's happening in a lot of different states. Like some teams are just they're timing their mile, and if they don't hit under a certain amount of the then they're just taking those players for the team. Like
it's a little nerve-wracking too, right?
And it's not even like
with no volleyball skill.
No volleyball skill.
And it's dumb. Then they're going to spend the summer running, which is like totally not. I mean, it's not the same as playing volleyball. Running is long distance sport, right?
And volleyball's anaerobic.
It doesn't help glute development at all. It's like just calves. And it's probably not good for your knees as well.
It'd be, if they were playing basketball, maybe.
But
not anaerobic volleyball. But that's sort of what people are doing. Is they're just but the big thing for me, the red flag, is if I see a coach, and you never know, they might expose it at a tryout by accident. If there's like, all right, you guys aren't performing, run laps. That's like, so you aren't performing. Like when we talked about this with your coach, where like they were one of your varsity coaches who would punish you guys with running if you didn't serve well. Yeah. Rather than, okay, let's look at why you're not serving well, and let's use that valuable gym time. Right? Like, gym time is so like in a practice, your coach should be concerned with not having enough time to impart all of his or her knowledge to you. Yeah. So if you're wasting 20 minutes of practice punishing them, that means that you don't have 20 minutes that you could be fixing the problem.
Sometimes it was somewhat. I'll give them the benefit here is that like if the coach knew that the whole team just showed up hungover, right, and then they do something like that, serving, and then no one's matching the intensity, the serves aren't being that well, then first time bring them in, give them a bit of a stern talk to. It's like, I know you guys were out being idiots last night. You're playing like shit right now. Just have a real talk with them. We're going to go back. We're going to try this again, and then whatever. And then they go back and try it again. They're still dogging it or whatever. I've had, I maybe it's still inappropriate. And then you end up doing sprints or like lines or something.
See, what you do is the players that are the problem who aren't performing, even if they're the superstar, you bench them as a consequence.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to physically punish them.
Yeah.
You can just say to them, this is a coach. Like, let's not forget who this is, but there's a coach who didn't have the guts to say, who are the people showing up? Who's showing up on time? You told me this too when you were going through it. People walking in late to practice.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Right? And you weren't. You were one of the best players on the team.
I think there was a few times where I did,
because the culture allowed it.
Yeah, because it was starting to like, and then I would allow it myself to make the mistake. I'd be like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah, and this is a young team. You were a little older than the other guys, but this is a culture thing. The coach allowed you to even think that it was nothing happened. Yeah. So what the hell? So that intensity, it's such a big, like, so some people look at that situation, they're like, oh, the team is staying out and drinking too much, the varsity team. The problem goes way back before that. The problem goes to, we can do this because we have no consequence. Yeah. It's like when, every now and then my wife will look at our kids and say, you'd tell us, right, if you were doing drugs? And then we all laugh because the kids and me know that there's this culture in the family that's been created where they don't feel the need to escape their reality, and two, it would come up. Like, our culture is like, we would know instantly because we're very connected to our kids, and they tell us way too much, right? Other people like, I'm shocked at the things they tell us because we've created this culture.
Yeah.
That team, that's just a symptom, them going out drinking, of a problem. So if that coach had consequences from day one, then see, the coaches that feel the need to punish players with running and physical activity, they've already failed. Because they've already lost. Like, if your team's not intense in the right moments, that's on you, coach. Like, the
mistakes already been made.
Yeah, like I can give you a great example. So I was coaching a 14U girls, maybe 14U girls team, and they're playing this match, and there's this team that was very poorly skilled that they were playing against. Like, bad serves, no 3 hits. It was erratic, coming over on 1-2, and so our team destroyed them the first set. Right. And I was like, okay, we're just going to work on our things. Let's work on 3 hits. I sort of set a fake goal for our team. I said, okay, if they get more than the guys, we're seeing them, they're not highly skilled. If they get more than 12 points on us, then let's consider that a loss for us. Okay. So just trying to keep the intensity up. Right. And so the girls beat them the first set, no problem. And then the second set, they just, in their heads, they checked out because it was an easy team to beat, and they were losing, and they're all looking over at me, and I'm just sitting there not saying a word. Just sort of clapping, going, let's go. And they're getting beat badly, right? And then I'm like, don't look at me. It's your team. You know what to do. I'm not going to come here and tell you whatever. And then they lost the second set. And the player comes over and says, oh, you should have taken a timeout. And I said, what would I have told you in the timeout, right? Like, why should I take a timeout?
Didn't already know. Right?
Yeah, like, I'm not, like, you guys know what to do here. I'm not here to rescue you. You guys are clearly playing a team you should beat. You're not playing your best. What do I need to tell you? If I teach you that I'm going to come save you every time there's a problem, then in life, what are you going to do? Right? Forget about sports. What about life? Right? Are you going to look for help when you know the answer? And then they went out and they destroyed them in the third set. And I was really happy that the girl asked me or tried to blame me for the loss. Like, think about this. She's trying to blame me for the loss. So I called her out and I said, so you're blaming me for not calling a timeout rather than you guys for not talking, not saying let's go, not making
taking
plays.
The moment to
that
rally,
sort of sums it all up
other,
today, doesn't it? Yeah. And I was willing to let them lose, and they were shocked. Everybody was like, "Why is he just sitting there? Why isn't he saving us?" Because I'm not a sexist pig. You need a man to save. No, but that's sort of there, right? That idea. Why isn't our man coach saving us? Too many Disney movies.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because in that situation, like I can never. It's hilarious that the player blamed you. Like,
well, I mean,
when it's obvious, like that
because
the players are the ones.
But they are used to the coaches getting involved. Like, the coach.
But that you just gave them an opportunity to rally themselves. And mind you, they did do it come the third, but you got to speak to them after the second.
Yeah, but I just let them see natural consequences.
Yeah.
So if you aren't going to help yourself, nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
I wanted them to learn in life. That's the way it goes, right? Nobody comes to save you in life. You got to pull your shit together. And they did. I didn't say much to them. I said, you guys, know what to do. Just go.
Yeah,
I didn't say anything.
Do, yeah.
Just the whistle ended. They tried to blame me. They failed. They're like, oh, yeah, shit, I guess it is up to us. And then they won easily. So I was like, all right, whatever. But I wasn't afraid of letting them fail, by the way, too, right? That's part of long-term approach. I like nothing better than when a kid, I loved it when my kids underestimated a team or played like goofs and lost, because then the lesson is easy. Yeah. Right. And it's not about me. Like, I used to give that speech all the time. I have enough medals. I played my volleyball. I had a great time. This is your time now. It's not my time. I don't think coaches get caught up in that too. I was thinking about this when we were talking about good coach and bad coach. Like, so when the coach was a player, if they were a player, it was their time in their mind, right? I'm a player. Yeah. And now they're the coach and it's still their time. Right. Now it's your time again. It's not that kid's time to play. Right. I was thinking that was interesting. Yeah. Right. No, they got to win. No, that's your time. Yeah. You want the medal. You wanted the medal as a player and as a coach.
That's not fair.
I believe the children are the future. Anyway, I'll keep going down this list. Disorder. So coach is a screamer.
Or a clipboard smasher.
Clipboard smasher, yeah. I think whenever coaches start doing too much for players, I don't even like telling players where to serve. I always look at college coaches. I'm like, you're still telling your 18, 20-year-old player where to serve.
Yeah.
When they should be taking a look on their own.
Yeah.
You know, like they should be able to have an experience to see where to go
That's what I don't understand.
and to do it.
But I think the coach needs to look like they're still like, you know.
Like, oh, I had that mentality to know to tell him where to serve,
Yeah.
and he did it, and that's me.
Exactly. That's it. I get credit for the ace. Yeah, I think that's the other thing too. They're micromanagers, right? Teach your kids or players to know how to spot trends.
Yeah.
Because whenever someone does the thinking for you, then you're not going to think.
Yeah.
You're robbing them of the opportunity to learn that basic skill. So, and screaming, clipboard smashing, you said, Eric, red flag.
Yelling at the ref and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Or the linesman.
Because that's a blamer too.
Volunteer
right?
linesman.
That's a blamer too. They
Yeah.
blame too much. I understand shitty calls happen, and there's some really shitty calls that happen. And,
Yeah.
But
Plenty
in the
of 'em.
grand scheme of things, you know, again, if you get back to what are sports for, are we teaching kids to be better people? You know, 99% of them, 99.9% of them are not going to play professionally. So why don't we make them better people?
Yeah. At least that is accomplished.
Yeah. But I guess it's tricky if the coach isn't a great person.
That's right.
Like we talked about before, remember? Living your best life. What if you anyway, go back and watch that episode. What episode was that? Do we know?
That was just last one, wasn't
I think it was a couple ago.
I want to say 4.
Yeah, maybe episode 4. Jeez, we're already losing track of our single digit episodes. It was the 4th last one. So no sense of coach is a screamer, disorganized, poor communication, vindictive towards other clubs. You kind of mentioned that too.
You're right. Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what did you mean when you said that?
Well, are you talking when I was the thing I'm thinking of is like when tryout and they said, oh, our next tryout is at this time, and they purposely did it at the same time of other clubs. It's just like a cheesy way to get you to lock in, but you kind of pointed that out. The power is in the parents and the player, right? And they're trying to trick you into thinking that they have the power, right? It's just it's a sales scheme, right?
Yeah.
They just want to lock you in, and they just want to make you feel like you need them, and
Yeah.
that's what it seems like, anyways.
And whenever somebody like even if you
I
go take it down
immediately
to a
go the
person,
other way whenever I see that shit.
even in people,
It's like
right?
it's cringy.
You ever have somebody who's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
or like in sales or anything, like if, like I don't know, like if you're talking about competition, like you know, what I mean? And they start slagging the competition.
Yeah,
It almost seems reeks of insecurity and
yeah.
Yeah.
If
Makes
you're
you wanna go
good,
check it out.
if
yeah.
you're really good, then you shouldn't need
That's
to
right.
do that stuff, right?
Yeah. All you have to offer is what you bring to the table,
Yes.
and let the parent, coach,
Yeah.
person.
They shouldn't be
one
concerned
to
with
decide.
the activity and the schedule of other clubs. It's like, why do you know their tryout schedule?
Yeah, if you're too, like we talked about in one episode too, where like if you're a 100-meter sprinter, right? If you're focused on your excellence,
Yeah,
you're not looking sideways at the
Yeah.
lanes. You're just driven right for that finish line. You're too busy to look around and too busy to criticize.
Yeah,
I hate it when clubs start talking about other clubs, and it just, to me, it's a red flag of like, oh, okay, so you don't have your shit together, so you're gonna shit on them. You know, play games a little bit. So, we talked no sense of drill pace or timing. Like, you know, we talked about that too. Like if there's a ton of kids in the gym, the drills are totally set up for like one kid at a time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
I was the worst thing.
if volume's good for them and they're going to be doing drills like that in the season, then
Yeah, it's just a red flag too that they don't. Again, not player focused. They're not thinking ahead. They're not organized, and they probably don't know volleyball because that's pretty basic, right? Like parents, if you go to a club tryout and the kids are standing around, it's not multi-kid drill. If there's too many coaches initiating the ball into the drill, by the way, that can be a problem too. They should be getting players to initiate the ball into the drill, because even if it sucks, you have to ask yourself, like, well, what do you want the kids practice at playing? The ball that is random and sucky, because that's who they're playing against. They're not playing against an adult who's going to toss it into them.
perfect toss.
It's got to be the randomness of the real volleyball that they'll face. We're like, oh, but then the serve doesn't go right in the right spot where I want it to, or the toss doesn't go right in the right spot. Well, that's what kids need to get used to, is the randomness of real volleyball.
Yeah.
So, just the drills need to be a lot of focus on the athlete, and they can't be this one kid at a time with 30 kids waiting for the next toss. It's like, ooh. Yeah. Another red flag. No sense of recovery. We talked about this a little bit. The teams that want to practice way too much, like 2-hour sessions 3 times a week, and then they have a couple workout days. You're going to burn that kid out mentally, physically. They don't care. They're just treating it like the Olympics,
Injuries. Yeah.
Injuries.
Rest
Yeah,
time
too
is also important.
And in the era of mental health too, like kids, they need a break. They need to know.
Yeah, they need other stuff other than volleyball.
Yeah, I tell parents that too. A lot of our kids' friends, like a lot of their parents still forced them to get jobs because they were forced to get jobs when they were teenagers, and I get that. But we didn't have sports like this, like crazy amounts of sports in our time, and we didn't have computers and tech that made us like now teachers make homework due at midnight, right? Because they can go home and they can work on their essay till midnight. So then they have to email it in or photograph if it's a big project and email it in. So like the pressure's on kids now. Like we were done school. It was awesome, right? With no computer. We were just like, our next day or Collins, you just act like you're sick and then you don't have to, nobody can contact you, right? Like you only had a phone.
Yeah.
Now there's email. There's like, don't worry, I posted it all online. You can go find it now, So when parents force their kids to get a job and play rep sports and the homework demands are crazy.
And they have to live their life.
Life. Yeah, we wonder why kids get burnt out. People forget that. So yes, we want our kids to have jobs too, but we are very mindful that, I hate to say it, but your volleyball takes up a lot of your time, right? I'd rather you sleep a bit than, but anyway, I know that's not every family can necessarily do that, right? So no sense of recovery, no qualified technical director, coaches. We talked about that already. Not actually watching tryouts. The coaches that we talked about, that's my favorite when they have a drill and the kids are doing stuff and they're not even watching to see who's like lighting it up.
That's right.
It's like because all the spots are picked. Clubs re-sign the whole team. We talked about coaches move up with the same group. That's horrible. I hate that when the coach. Like there are literally kids who have the same coach every year of their club experience. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, regardless of the age, right?
Yeah, because like if the coach is the dad or the mom, they move up with the whole group of kids and they have them every year. And the club's just like, yeah, great. We don't have to hire for that position.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Too cliquey.
Yeah, that's what I had. Too friendly. Club asking for full payment up front. No installment or patience with the payment. That's an interesting one. When clubs want money really fast, I tell parents to kind of run because it's why are they so? Why do they want all the money right now?
What are they paying? What do they need to pay off?
Yeah, or just like, were they afraid that you're going to ask for your money back or not pay once you see the quality that shows up later? So if a club isn't giving you like an installment plan, or is demanding the money, and as soon as you accept the offer, it's kind of weird. That's a red flag to get away, because that, again, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if they're that pushy at signing, like they're trying to sell you a used car, what can I do? That's what you're gonna do.
Because unless you're playing 3 tournaments in a day, then there's no real need to pay the same way.
The gym rental fees are there, but but that should be covered by some people charge. Most teams charge a little bit for tryouts anyway, so that covers your gym rental fees. But for club, it's almost a red flag because they don't want you to find out something or talk to other parents.
If you're committed financially, then they feel you're locked, and you feel you're locked.
I told you guys that story I read on Facebook, a real story from a volleyball parent who was saying that their kid. I think I told you the 16-year-old kid was forced to sign. The mother wasn't able. Did I say that in an episode? Yeah. Wasn't able to attend the tryout, and the kid signed saying yes, we'll accept the spot after calling home. Yeah. And then the parent and player, it was one tryout, and they wanted to play somewhere else eventually. Within the tryout window,
they tried to demand money.
And the club demanded money and is suing the parent now, who is, by the way, sick. That's why the parent wasn't at the trial night. What a crazy scenario. We're like, run the other way, right?
Holy.
And then I just had some other notes. Unless, Eric, is there other stuff that you wanted to get to on yours?
No, we've gone.
We hit it all?
Yeah.
Meach, anything on yours?
That's it.
Okay, so I just got a couple more. So these are just other notes for parents. So if the overall general advice for parents when you're trying to pick that club if the price of the club is high, make sure coaching resumes are high level as well. If you can look up those resumes online, if they're not online, red flag, but ask someone. Don't just send away thousands of dollars and your kid to a club for 8 months without knowing who that coach is. Okay?
Could be a cult as well.
Could be a cult.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep your kid.
Yeah, they start talking about spaceships and anyway.
Something like that.
That's good. Could be a Be careful. Does it say volleyball club or cult? Because if you look really fast, I made that mistake once.
Never again.
David Koresh. Anyway, again, club has to treat your kids. Oh yeah, parents should treat their kids' development as a priority, not the club. Because I'm just gonna tell parents, clubs don't care about you. They will drop your kid in a heartbeat if you they find somebody better. So just remember that if a club is not wanting your kid to go practice, remember we talked about this, go to other club opportunities or practice with other clubs, or not practice, but go to a clinic that's offered by another club when they have a guest coach or something like that, or like they're forbidding you from going to other opportunities to practice. That's a bit of a red flag too, right? And yeah, sometimes it's nice to be a big fish in a small pond. That can pay off for kids. Stay away from the noise. The noisiest, most loud cities, the big cities with the big club teams and the glitzy glamour thing. Sometimes parents should be pulling their kid out of that spotlight, let them go somewhere else, develop quietly. I think that can be beneficial. I mentioned this off the top. Treat the tryout as a tryout for the club and coach. Parents, start to sit there. Don't just sit there hoping your kid makes it. Sit there and really look at the club. Listen to the parents. Listen to the coach. Do I want my kid in this environment? Not, I sure hope my kid makes it. That's a blinding thought process. I think it makes you take your guard down, and your guard should be up watching these other things. I always say this too, like if parents are worried about their kid not being, going on to great things in volleyball or whatever, if your kid is going to make it, I think they're going to make it. No matter where they go, I don't know many kids that are like lighting it up, and they just, if only somebody saw me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think greatness is always found.
Like if the ones who make it in volleyball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's nice to find a great coach, obviously. Look for those opportunities. But don't feel like you have to be with a certain club to get found.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one.
I would think that's true, yeah.
Yeah, because you're always going to play these players in tournaments anyway. And if a coach shows up that, next level of varsity, whatever, they'll see your kid thumping it.
Yeah.
And they might not see them thumping it if they're on the bench on a different, you know what I mean? So you got to be mindful of getting your kid out on the court, getting him as many reps as possible. So greatness is always found. And parents, I think the last point for me, just because I'm talking way too much too, is trust your gut. Parents, I think a lot of parents know, like, we all have, you had this moment in your life where you you should have done something, like your gut was telling you, and you had that bad feeling and you still went with it. Yeah. And then you look back and go, man, like, because same with like every negative experience we've had, I knew it was going to be a bad experience. And our kid kind of knew it was going to be a bad experience. Yeah. But, you have to live in it. Yeah, you have to try it. You have to try it. But you learn, trust your gut and trust your kid's gut, like Meach said off the top, right? If that kid, if your kid isn't comfortable in the spot, you have to sort out, is it fear of change or is it fear of they don't like the vibe? I think what they tell you is really important. If they tell you, I don't feel comfortable with these new people, that's not necessarily one to run away from. If they say, I don't feel comfortable because they make me feel this way or they're very cliquey, that's a better red flag, I think. Yeah. Okay, Meach, camera's on you. So this is your moment to shine.
That's all sultry look that just came out.
Yeah. Meach, remember, some people are just listening to this. They can't hear.
Oh yeah. This is
They
true.
can't hear your sexy. Yeah, for those of you listening on on Spotify, or Meach is making a bunch of sexy faces that he hopes will somehow come through your
They
headphones.
can feel it. It's just a feeling.
Turn it up really loud.
And you'll hear it.
Meach has a face for radio. No. Eric, camera's on you.
Oh,
Don't make a bunch of sexy faces. Any last thoughts for how to pick a club? What would you do, Eric? How would you pick a club team? One sentence. If you had a kid.
I mean, because there's so many different elements that we've all described, I would have to say, yeah, your intuition or trusting your gut is a good place to put your money on,
Yeah.
right?
So this whole show was not necessary.
No, what? Well, it was necessary. What do you mean?
Well, because you just boiled it down to trust your gut.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of our points. I think
Yeah.
that
Mm,
was
Kind of hurts my feelings, though. 'Cause
Oh,
I talked a lot. No,
I'm sorry.
Edit. This will be a 30-second episode now. Just talking about fucking turkey vultures. Trust your gut.
I didn't know they migrated in flocks, man. I thought they were like solo artists because you usually see them on their own.
Okay, so when did you find this out?
Just the other day, I saw them flying in a big group, getting ready to go south, I guess.
So you didn't even look this up. You just saw this.
And I looked it up after they do migrate in
Okay.
flocks. Yeah.
Did you look it up while they were flying around?
Yeah.
Did they pick you up with their talons
No.
and carry you away?
No,
Did
Maybe
you
they did.
look it up during this episode?
I did not.
Okay.
A lot of people are, though.
Yeah. I can right now. I should probably fact check this.
Yeah,
Also,
this
it
is-
is spelled repute because it is a root
Oh,
word of
you looked that up?
reputation. But the phrase is bad rap,
It is bad rap.
R.A.P..
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does that come from?
which
Rap. R.A.P.
has historically been interpreted as a spelling error, but has seen enough usage to merit entry.
Ah, okay. So it's probably an accent on bad rep.
Yeah, it is, or it's yeah.
Yeah, they just say bad rap.
Yeah.
He's got a bad rap.
Do they say it like that?
That's the way I like to say it. I'm good at voices. Did we mention this in any episode?
No,
Anyway,
I think we avoided the topic.
right. I keep forgetting. Because I got a bad rap. Okay. Anyway, I think this is done. I think
so.
I think people are just listening, wasting time now, wondering, are we going to say anything valuable? Have they said anything valuable? Trust your gut. Eric sums it up.
You can turn us off right now. We've probably said it all.
You've been turning me off since I met you.
Oh, well.
What's the big idea?